A contractor I work with here in Texas paid $50,000 cash for a piece of equipment last year. He felt really good about it for about 2 months, and then he had a slow quarter and had to make payroll on a line of credit at 8.5% interest and realized he was paying the bank to access money he'd already earned. That's the trade-off most business owners don't see when they pay cash. And I'm going to warn you up front, what I'm about to show you challenges advice you've probably heard from someone that you respect highly. So if you're emotionally attached to this idea that debt-free automatically equals wealthy, this video will frustrate you. However, by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly why paying cash for business equipment quietly drains your long-term wealth and the specific framework wealthy business owners use instead. It's the same equipment, same purchase, but a completely different outcome 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Before we go any further though, a quick note, everything I'm sharing in this video is for educational purposes only. It's not to be misconstrued as personalized financial, tax, or legal advice. So talk to your CPA or any other licensed professional before making any decisions regarding your business or personal financial picture. Okay, now let's dive in. So in my practice here in Austin, Texas, I work primarily with specialty trade business owners, HVAC, plumbing, electrical businesses. And they're typically making between $150,000 and $2 million net per year. And this exact mistake is the most common pattern I see when a new client shows me their financials for the first time. They feel safe paying cash for all their equipment because it makes them feel safe from debt. And I can already guess what you're likely thinking right now. Well, I like paying cash because I don't like owing anybody anything. That's the entire point. And I get that. That advice came from somewhere reasonable. This idea that consumer debt destroys families here in America, there's some validity to that. But business equipment is not a credit card balance. And treating those two the same that's what's costing you. So here's this comfortable lie that most business owners I work with believe, that paying cash equals financial discipline, and financial discipline equals wealth. That line of thinking is always well-intentioned, but as the famous saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So let me give you my basic synopsis of why I believe that sequence fails you financially. Every single dollar you spend on equipment in cash is a dollar that stops working for you forever. And almost no one calculates the opportunity cost of that lost capital because the cost doesn't show up on a statement. It shows up as the deal you couldn't take, the slow quarter you couldn't weather, and especially the line of credit you were forced to draw on 6 months later at 8 or 9%, just to access money that you've already earned. Paying cash over financing is conventional wisdom. And conventional wisdom doesn't separate consumer debt from business capital deployment. But those two are completely different conversations. And until you separate them, the advice doesn't fit your specific business situation. Quick note to that, a lot of what I share on this channel is unconventional wisdom that is tailored to unconventional income. So if you're a business owner making unconventional income as compared to the average W-2 employee, then your wealth strategies need to come from unconventional strategies. So hit that subscribe button below so you won't miss out on these key strategies that I address in this channel. So here's the thing most business owners never figure out. The difference between the trade owner who hits age 55 with $2 million in accessible capital and the one who hits 55, still depending on a line of credit, is not how much they each earned. It's what they did with the dollars that passed through their hands along the way. It's the process in which they bought the equipment. It's the same revenue, it's the same business, but again, two completely different outcomes, driven by one decision made over and over and over for 20 years. The biggest pushback I get on this is, but Will, if I finance the equipment, I'm paying interest to a bank. That's losing money too. That's a fair concern. Totally agree. But let's hold that thought for a minute, because the answer to that question is the entire reason wealthy business owners run their finances differently than the rest of the country. Here's what almost nobody tells you about a cash purchase. When you pay cash for a piece of equipment, you didn't avoid the cost. You just paid it in a different currency. You paid it in liquidity. And liquidity is the most expensive commodity a business owner can lose, because liquidity is the only thing that lets you say no to a bad job and yes to a good opportunity. The day you wire that 50 grand to the equipment dealer, your bank account looks smaller, certainly, but more importantly, your options got smaller. And you traded a financing cost you can see for an opportunity cost that you can't see. And over a 10 or 20 year horizon, the invisible cost is 9 out of 10 times larger than the visible one that you tried to avoid. So let me show you what I mean. I had an HVAC contractor, let's call him Chad, who probably maybe about the same size as your business, grossing around $500,000 a year, taking about $150,000 home after taxes. He paid cash for a $50,000 van setup. This made him feel responsible. It felt like the right move. But 2 months later, his commercial install pipeline slowed for just 1 quarter. He was forced to draw 38 grand off his line of credit at 8% to make payroll gaps. Paid the bank roughly 3 grand in interest before he caught back up. So what actually happened is he spent $50,000 to buy the equipment. Then he paid an additional 3 grand to access money he'd already earned. That's a $53,000 transaction for a $50,000 piece of equipment. By now you're likely scratching your head saying, Will, what's the point of this video? Isn't this making my point that whether I pay cash and use the line of credit or finance the whole equipment purchase, the cost is the same? Yes, you are correct. But remember, this only gives light to the visible cost we just mentioned. Both scenarios we just covered are on equal ground because of one common denominator. They aren't using a banking system they own and control. They're going to someone else's bank. On the surface, financing through someone else's bank is rarely cheaper than paying cash on a pure interest math equation alone. When you finance through your system that you own and control, you finance through your own capital pool, which means the interest you'd have paid to a bank stays in your system and the original 50 grand keeps compounding. It's still there, still earning interest, still producing dividends, as if you never spent it, even though the equipment is sitting in your business lot. That's the move banks can't match. And it's the move that a cash purchase destroys. How does that work exactly? After this, go check out my next video called The Business Owner's Banking System. We'll run everything down in that video. But the interest you pay is recapitalizing something that you own. It's not used to rent money from somebody else. So let's dig into the invisible cost I'm talking about. There are 2 primary reasons why paying cash is killing your wealth potential. When you paid cash for that $50,000 piece of equipment, you didn't just lose the $50,000, but also every dollar of interest it would have earned for you over the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's the cost cash purchases hide from you. That's the cost financing through your own system protects you from. Same equipment, same purchase price, but a completely different result on your balance sheet a decade or 2 later. Your homework this week is to go pull up a time value money calculator on Google and put in the amount you paid in cash on your last piece of equipment you purchased, and then input the opportunity rate at 5% for the next 20 years. That's the true cost of that equipment, not the sticker price at the dealership. And you pay that every time you go purchase a new piece of equipment. That is the wealth potential you are saying goodbye to in your future. As I said earlier, this video will rub a lot of you the wrong way because your beliefs stem from conventional wisdom. To really catch this, you will need to burn it into your brain that a dollar spent is gone forever. It can never earn for you again. Most people define wealth as the absence of debt. That's the definition we got handed to us in the personal financial world over the last 30 years. Pay off the cards, pay off the truck, pay off the house, and then Voila, your balance hits zero and you're wealthy. But that's not what wealth actually is. Wealth is the presence of accessible, productive, tax-advantaged capital. Let me say that more clearly. Accessible, meaning you can get to it without permission. Productive, meaning it's earning uninterrupted compound interest. And tax-advantaged, meaning the IRS isn't taking a piece of it every year. A business owner with $80,000 sitting idle in a checking account and zero debt is actually poorer than a business owner with $80,000 growing in a structured asset and $45,000 in low-cost financing on productive equipment. The first owner has zero working capital. The second has 80 grand working, plus the equipment earning more for his business. It's the same starting point on day one at the starting line, but it's a very different position by year 5. So let me give you the real definition of debt. Debt is a financial obligation in which the only way to satisfy it is with money you have yet to earn or on future cash flow. If you are a business owner that's halfway successful, then I'd imagine you likely have at least $500,000 in company equity, and there's an even higher likelihood that you have other assets that could satisfy any debt you currently carry, all at the stroke of a pen. Owing a balance is not a debt. At the bank, do they say they have assets and debts on their books? No. You do not have debt, you have liabilities. And how you finance those liabilities that your business needs in order to earn more assets for you should be a weapon that you use to conquer whatever hurdles you face in your business. So in case you're saying, Will, 50 grand isn't going to make or break me over 20 years. I'll be fine. Fair. Well, let me show you what that one habit actually does when you stretch it across a real business owner's career. A specialty trade business owner buys, on average, one major piece of equipment every 18 to 36 months. That could be trucks, compressors, trailers, specialty tooling, whatever your trade demands. Picture that. So over 20 years, that's 7 to 13 capital deployments, easily in the ballpark of $300,000 to $700,000 of cumulative cash spent on equipment over that time frame. And every one of those dollars was either deployed in a way that recovers and grows, or is spent in a way that disappears the moment it leaves your account. Said another way, it could be deployed through a structure where you can pay yourself back, which keeps the original capital compounding while the equipment does its job. The equipment depreciates, of course, but the underlying capital pool that financed it doesn't. Over time, the dollar that bought the equipment is still in your system, still earning over that time. Or it could be the other way. The $50K wired to the equipment dealer is gone. You own the equipment, but the cash itself and any future growth that cash could have generated left your balance sheet permanently the day you sent the wire. A typical pushback I hear is, yeah, but the equipment is earning me income in my business. So the dollars are working technically. And that is true technically. But your money is earning in only one place. Wouldn't you rather have the dollars warehoused in an appreciating asset that has tax advantages while it's also creating new dollars in your business? Or would you rather have it sunk in a depreciating asset where those dollars only work if the van does? So, enough talking already. As people say where I'm from, put up or shut up. So I'm going to put up. I'm going to show you a comparison of two business owners who bought the same van at $50,000, replaced it or acquired a new one every 36 months over 20 years. It's the same van, same story, but a completely different outcome. The only major difference is where they put their capital. So this first chart shows the equipment acquisitions of the business owners. The blue line is business owner B, the cash buyer, and the orange line is business owner A, the privatized banking implementer. Each business owner purchased a specialty van for their HVAC company at $50,000 and acquired a new one every 36 months at the new sticker price that moved at 3% inflation. Owner A is financing and making principal and interest payments. Owner B is paying cash, then saving and putting away enough each year to purchase the next van. You'll notice, as we pointed out earlier, that business A is paying substantially more for the privilege of using someone else's money by financing. We'll see in a minute why this is better. The thing to note from this graph is that this is not only reflective of the purchase and savings of business owner B's equipment, but this is also the growth pattern of their dollars. He saves, he spends, he saves, he spends over 20 years, all just to avoid being in debt. Now let's take a look at how business owner A's capital performed. You'll notice the lower x-axis of the graph mimics the previous graph. Those are the purchases of each owner. The orange line is the private banker. The green line represents the cash buyer. Every time he buys equipment, the line dips. Then it claws back to the purchase price. Then it dips again. 20 years later, he owns a lot of depreciated assets and no debt, thankfully, right? But he has nothing built to show for it. The line on top is the capital strategist, the private banker. Same equipment purchases, same price tags, but his capital is in a structure that lets him borrow against it without interrupting its growth. Their line keeps climbing. Their purchase line is almost the exact same as the cash buyer. They deployed capital and paid themselves back, but the underlying growth curve tied to the asset never resets. It compounds, uninterrupted, for 20 years. By the end of the 20 years, business owner A's capital has grown to be worth $934,000 tax advantaged. If you recall a few minutes back, I mentioned why it was better for owner A to pay more to finance the same equipment. So let's go back to the first graph. Over the course of each van's financing schedule, owner A paid much more than the cash buyer for the same van. That's the visible cost we spoke about earlier. But the invisible cost is the fact that owner A's capital cost was only 4% from the carrier. But since he was a smart banker, decided to still pay the 9% financing rate that he was handcuffed to at the local bank in the past. That's a spread of 5% that used to line the local bank's pocket, but now went right back into his pocket, earning 5% uninterrupted. Over 20 years, his spread allowed him to capture an average of $1,370 per year in interest back into his system, growing at 5%. That is $47,587 he made by financing from his own system. The final tally is this. The privatized banker paid $81,358 more than the cash buyer to finance his vans this way. But in the end, he profited $928,000 over and above his constituent. Now, I'm not going to give you a fake number. Your specific outcome depends on your premium level, your dividend scale, and your repayment discipline, most importantly. But I'll tell you what we've seen with the families I work with. The gap between these two lines at year 20 is usually large enough to fund a kid's college education, a retirement income floor, or even a real exit from the business. From the same dollars, just deployed differently. As you will hear me say many times in this channel, this is about a financial process, not financial products. I want to say something to you directly. The discipline that got you to a place where you can pay cash for a $50,000 piece of equipment is real. That's not nothing. Most people in this country can't do that. Most people in this country can't even pay cash for a $600 car repair without having to throw it on a credit card. So the instinct that got you here, that instinct is correct. I'm not telling you to throw it away. I applaud you for it. But here's the part that nobody tells you. The strategy that gets a business owner from 0 to $50,000 in available cash is not the same strategy that takes them from $50,000 to $2 million in accessible capital reserves. Those are two completely different problems. So they need two completely different strategies. The first phase is about discipline, about saving, saying no to consumer debt, building the habit of spending less than you earn, and breaking the cycle that traps most American families. The second phase is about deployment, about taking the capital that discipline produced and putting it to work in a structure that compounds. Most business owners stay stuck in phase one for 20 years longer than they need to. Not because they're not smart enough, certainly. They created an amazing business. But it's because nobody told them the rules changed. Nobody even told them there was phase two. So here's what I want you to hear. You are allowed to have used a strategy that was right for one season of your life and to outgrow it. That's not a contradiction. That's not betraying the principles that got you here. That's just operating at a higher level than you were 5 years ago, which is what you're supposed to do when you grow. Now, before you start thinking I'm just another guy on the internet pitching the next financial silver bullet, let me be very clear about what I don't do. I don't work with people who make less than $80,000 net a year. The math just doesn't work out yet for this type of system, and I'm not going to take your money and put it in that kind of structure that doesn't fit your present life stage. I also don't manage stock portfolios, and I definitely don't put anyone in mutual funds. That's definitely not my lane. There are people who do that better than I would, and I think you'd be better suited if you wanted to go with that strategy with them. I don't prepare taxes. If you have a CPA, then stick with them. If you don't, definitely get one. I don't budget your household expenses, and I don't sell property and casualty insurance. What I do is help specialty trade business owners that have company equity of over $1 million and more than 10 years from retirement find the cash flow inefficiencies hiding in their business and reroute them into a system that keeps the capital working and accessible. And if you're outside that lane, there are better people for you than me in the financial services industry. Hey business owner, if what I'm describing in this video sounds like your situation, you're running a real business, you've got cash moving through it every month, and you're starting to suspect that the way you've been deploying that cash isn't actually building the wealth you thought it would, well, there's a link in the description below this video to our free resource. Click that to access our quick start guide if you want to learn more. Now, I told you earlier, there's a structure wealthy business owners use to keep their capital working and access it whenever their business needs it. I named it earlier in this video. So in that next video, we're gonna break it down and show you exactly how it's built. It's called the Business Owner's Banking System. And once you see how it works, every cash purchase you've made for the last 5 years is going to look different in your head. When you watch the Business Owner's Banking System, the math from this video is going to click in a way it hasn't yet. Same dollars, different rules. We will see you there.